The space station called Helios Ring floated in the darkness between stars. It was a massive structure, shaped like a wheel, spinning slowly to create gravity for the thousands of aliens who lived and worked inside. For 300 years, this station had been a place of peace. Different species came here to trade goods, share knowledge, and make deals. The hegemony controlled this station, and they were proud of the order they maintained. Commander stood on the main bridge, watching the endless flow of ships coming and going. Which meant he looked something like a giant insect. He had 4 arms, compound eyes that could see in many directions at once, and a hard shell covering his body. His people believed they were the most advanced species in this part of the galaxy. They had conquered many worlds and controlled many races, had served the hegemony for 40 years, and he had never seen anything that truly surprised him. That was about to change. The alarm came without warning. It was not the normal alert for incoming ships. This was the deep, pulsing sound that meant danger. Turned to his sensor officer, a young named, whose 4 hands were shaking as he worked the controls. "Report," commanded. His voice was calm, but inside he felt the first touch of worry. "A ship has come out of hyperspace," said. "It appeared suddenly, very close to the station. I have never seen a vessel enter normal space so precisely." "Show me." The main screen flickered and displayed the approaching ship. Stared at it for a long moment, trying to understand what he was seeing. The vessel was enormous, at least 3 kilometers long. Its design was unlike anything in the hegemony's database. Sharp angles, dark metal, and strange patterns of light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. The ship moved with a grace that seemed impossible for something so large. "Identify the vessel," ordered. The station's computer processed the request, expected a quick answer. Instead, there was a long pause. When the computer finally spoke, its voice had changed. It sounded almost afraid. "Caution, incoming human BATTLECRAFT. Designation, UENS Indomitable. Threat assessment, extinction class. All personnel are advised to evacuate or submit immediately." Felt his blood turn cold. Humans? That was impossible. The humans were a primitive species from a small planet called Earth. The hegemony had discovered them 200 years ago and decided they were not worth attention. They had barely learned to leave their own world. They were classified as simple creatures, not much smarter than animals. "There must be an error," said. "Run the identification again." "Identification confirmed," the computer replied. "The vessel originates from the Sol system. Species, human, technology level, unknown. Power signature exceeds all recorded measurements." Before could respond, a transmission came through. The screen changed to show the inside of the human ship. A woman sat in what appeared to be a command chair. She had dark hair pulled back from her face, and her eyes were sharp and focused. She wore a uniform of white and dark blue, with symbols that did not recognize. Behind her, other humans worked at their stations, their movements quick and confident. "This is Admiral of the United Earth Navy," the woman said. Her voice was calm and clear. "I am speaking to the commander of Helios Ring Station." Found his voice. "I am commander of the hegemony. You are in restricted space. Explain your presence." Admiral did not seem bothered by his tone. 60 years ago, a science vessel captured a human exploration ship near our home system. 18 of our people were taken. We know they are being held at a research facility in this sector. Searched his memory. He had heard something about this, long ago. A minor incident involving primitive creatures from a quarantined world. It had not seemed important at the time. "I have no knowledge of this matter," said carefully. "Then you should check your records," replied. "You have 12 hours to release our people. If they are not returned to us safely by that time, we will come and take them ourselves." The transmission ended. Stood in silence, his mind racing. Around him, his officers looked at each other with confusion and fear. They had never received such a message before. No species had ever threatened the hegemony so directly. "Contact Hegemony Command," ordered. "Tell them what has happened. Send them all the data we have on this ship." As his officers rushed to obey, turned back to the screen. The human ship hung in space, unmoving. It did not seem aggressive. It simply waited like a predator that knows its prey cannot escape. Had spent his entire life believing that the hegemony was the greatest power in the galaxy. Looking at that ship, he felt that belief begin to crack. The computer had called it Extinction Class. He did not know exactly what that meant, but he understood enough. Whatever the humans had become in the last 200 years, they were no longer the primitive creatures the hegemony had dismissed. They had built something terrible, and they had come to take back what was theirs. Looked at the countdown timer that had appeared on his screen. 12 hours. He had 12 hours to find out what had happened 60 years ago, and to decide what to do about the monsters waiting outside his station. He had a feeling that 12 hours would not be enough. 60 years before the Indomitable arrived at Helios Ring, a small human ship called the Pioneer flew through the darkness of space. It was an exploration vessel, designed to study new star systems and search for signs of life. The crew of 18 people had traveled farther from Earth than any humans before them. They were excited and proud of their mission. Captain commanded the Pioneer. He was a careful man who loved his crew like family. Every night before he slept, he looked at a photograph of his daughter. She was 12 years old, waiting for him back on Earth. He had promised her he would return with stories of distant stars. He never got the chance to keep that promise. The science vessel appeared without warning. It was much larger than the Pioneer, and its weapons were far more powerful. Captain tried to communicate, tried to explain that they came in peace. They did not listen. They saw the humans as interesting specimens, nothing more. They captured the Pioneer and took its crew. The 18 humans were frozen in special containers called pods. They transported them to a research station orbiting a gas giant far from any human world. Scientists studied them for a while, taking samples and running tests. But eventually, they lost interest. Humans were primitive creatures with no technology worth studying. They classified them as non-sentient fauna, which meant they did not consider them to be real people. The frozen humans were put into storage and forgotten. But humanity did not forget. When the Pioneer failed to return, Earth sent search parties. They found nothing. The families of the crew demanded answers. The governments of Earth demanded action. But what could they do? Humanity had barely learned to travel between stars. They did not know who had taken their people or where they had gone. So they did the only thing they could do. They prepared. Lieutenant stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, remembering the history he had learned as a child. He was the tactical officer, responsible for the ship's weapons and defenses. He had trained his entire life for this moment. "They still think we are primitives," he said to Admiral. "They have no idea what we have become." Nodded slowly. She stood at the center of the bridge, watching the station on the main screen. Around her, the crew worked in perfect silence. Every person on this ship knew why they were here. Every person had a reason to fight. "When they took the Pioneer, we were using simple fusion engines," said. "We could barely reach the nearest stars. Now look at us." Looked around the bridge with pride. The Indomitable was the greatest warship ever built by human hands. 3 kilometers of advanced armor that could repair itself. Weapons that bent the laws of physics. An artificial intelligence network that could think faster than any living creature. This single ship carried more firepower than the entire defense fleet. 60 years of anger had built this vessel. 60 years of fear that it might happen again. Humanity had looked at the stars and seen not wonder but danger. They had learned that the galaxy was full of species that did not care about human lives, so they had prepared for war. "The rescue team is ready," reported. "Commander is leading them personally." Acknowledged this with a small nod. Commander was the best soldier in the United Earth Navy. His team had trained for years to extract prisoners from hostile locations. They would bring their people home. A new transmission came from the station. It was not from Commander. This was an official of much higher rank, speaking from somewhere far away. His image appeared on the screen, showing an older with faded colors on his shell. "Human vessel," the official said. "I am High Minister of the Hegemony. Your claims are being investigated. However, you must understand that you cannot threaten the hegemony. We have ruled this sector for thousands of years. You are newcomers here." Admiral listened without expression. When finished speaking, she replied in the same calm voice she always used. "High Minister, I am not making threats. I am stating facts. You took our people. You have held them for 60 years. We want them back. This is not complicated." Made a sound that might have been laughter. Even if these claims are true, the individuals would have been classified as research subjects. They belong to the hegemony now. Watched face carefully. He saw something dangerous flash in her eyes, but her voice remained steady. "Let me be very clear," she said. "Every person on that ship was a citizen of Earth. They had families who loved them, children who grew up without parents, parents who died without ever seeing their children again. We have waited 60 years for this moment. We will not wait any longer." She leaned forward slightly. "You have 11 hours now. Use them wisely." The transmission ended. Turned to his console and began running final checks on the weapon systems. He thought about the crew of the Pioneer, frozen in the darkness for 60 years. He thought about their families, who had never stopped hopping. Humanity had come for its children, and nothing in the galaxy would stop them. The 12 hours ended. They had not released the prisoners. Commander had spent those hours in desperate communication with Hegemony Command. He had begged them to simply give the humans what they wanted. The 18 frozen bodies were worthless to the hegemony. They had been forgotten for 60 years. Why risk conflict over such a small matter? But the High Council refused. To surrender to a lesser species would be shameful. It would make the hegemony look weak. Other species might see this and begin to question authority. The pride of an empire was worth more than common sense. So they sent warships instead. Watched 3 battlecruisers drop out of hyperspace and take position between the station and the human vessel. Each ship was nearly a kilometer long, armed with plasma cannons and missile batteries. Together, they represented a significant portion of the sector's military strength. Admiral watched them arrive from the bridge of the Indomitable. She felt no fear. She had studied technology for years. She knew exactly what those ships could do, and she knew it was not enough. "The deadline has passed," she said. "Lieutenant, target the station's weapons systems. Precision strike. No casualties if possible." "Understood, Admiral." His fingers moved across his console. The Indomitable's targeting computer locked onto every weapons platform on Helios Ring. There were 47 defensive turrets, 12 missile launchers, and 6 shield generators. The computer identified all of them in less than a second. "Targets locked," reported, firing quantum cannons. The Indomitable's weapons activated. There was no dramatic beam of light, no explosion of energy. Instead, reality itself seemed to twist around the targeted systems. The watching from the station saw their weapons simply vanish. One moment the turrets were there. The next moment they were gone, not destroyed, not damaged, just absent as if they had never existed. Commander stared at his screens in horror. His entire defensive network had been eliminated in less than 2 seconds. There had been no warning, no chance to respond. The human ship had not even moved. "What happened?" he demanded. "What did they do?" His science officer was trembling. "I do not know, Commander. Our sensors cannot explain it. The weapons were not hit by anything. They simply stopped existing at the atomic level." The 3 battlecruisers reacted to this display by turning to face the Indomitable. Their captains were brave soldiers who had fought many battles, but none of them had ever seen anything like this. The lead captain, a veteran named, opened communications with his fellow commanders. "We must attack together. Concentrate all fire on the human vessel." "Agreed," the other captains responded. Before they could fire, a new transmission came from the Indomitable. This time, it was not Admiral who appeared on screen. It was a younger officer, a woman with serious eyes and a straight posture. Her name was Ensign, and she served as the ship's communications specialist. "Vessels," said, "you are preparing to attack us. I want you to understand something before you make that choice." She paused, letting her words sink in. The 18 crew members of the Pioneer had families. Captain had a daughter named. She was 12 years old when her father was taken. She is now 72. She spent her entire life working to reach this moment. She is on this ship right now. His voice grew harder. "Lieutenant, our navigation officer, is the grandson of the Pioneer's engineer. Commander, who leads our rescue team, lost his grandmother to the same capture. Every single person serving on this vessel has a personal connection to the people you stole." She leaned forward. "This is not just a military mission. This is personal. Think very carefully about what you do next." The transmission ended. Captain hesitated. He looked at the human ship on his screen. It had destroyed the station's weapons with impossible ease. What would it do to his battle cruisers? But orders were orders. He could not retreat without permission from high command. "All ships prepare to fire on my command," he said. At that moment, the Indomitable moved. It did not accelerate like a normal ship. It flickered, disappearing from one position and appearing in another instantly. In less than a heartbeat, it passed through the formation of ships, moving so fast that their sensors could barely track it. When it stopped, every ship had red warning lights flashing on their bridges. The human vessel had locked weapons onto their reactors, their bridges, their life support systems. One command from Admiral would destroy them all. But she did not give that command. "You see what we can do," his voice came through the communications channel. "We do not want to kill you. We want our people. Give them to us and this ends peacefully." Captain looked at his tactical display. His ship was completely helpless. The humans could destroy him before he could even begin to fight back. He made a decision that would change the history of the galaxy. "All ships stand down," he ordered. "Do not fire." His fellow captains hesitated, then followed his lead. The fleet powered down its weapons. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral allowed herself a small smile. "Wise choice," she said quietly. "Now let us get our people home." The research station hung in orbit around a massive gas giant. Its surface was dark and cold, covered in sensors and antennas that pointed toward the swirling clouds below. For 60 years, this station had held humanity's lost children in frozen sleep. Commander led the rescue team through the station's empty corridors. They had fled when the Indomitable arrived, leaving behind only automated systems and locked doors. His team moved quickly and efficiently, cutting through barriers and following the signal from the pods. Was a large man with a calm face and steady hands. He had served in the military for 30 years, training for exactly this kind of mission. His grandmother had been the Pioneer's doctor. She had been 28 years old when they took her. Had been born long after her capture, but he had grown up with stories about her. He had seen the photographs, read her letters, felt the weight of her absence in his family. Now he was going to bring her home. "We have located the storage room," reported Sergeant, the team's technical specialist. She was working on a locked door, her fingers moving quickly over alien controls. 17 life signs detected, all stable. Frowned 17. There should be 18. One pod is showing no life signs. It may have failed at some point. Closed his eyes for a moment. They had lost one. After all this time, after all this effort, they had still lost one. He would mourn later. Right now, he had a job to do. The door opened, revealing a dark room filled with rows of pods. Each pod was a metal cylinder about 2 meters long, covered in frost and connected to power cables. Small screens showed vital signs in alien script. "Begin extraction," ordered. His team moved forward, carefully disconnecting each pod from the station systems and loading them onto transport sleds. They worked in silence, treating each pod with gentle respect. These were not just frozen bodies. These were people who had been waiting for rescue for 60 years. Back on the Indomitable, Admiral watched the operation through video feeds from the team's helmets. Beside her stood the daughter of Captain. She was 72 years old now, her hair gray and her face lined with age. But her eyes were sharp and focused, fixed on the screen showing her father's pod. "He looks exactly the same," whispered. "I remember his face so clearly, I was afraid I had forgotten." Put a hand on her shoulder. "You will see him soon. We are bringing him home." The pods arrived in the Indomitable's medical bay one by one. Doctor, the chief medical officer, supervised the revival process. It had to be done slowly and carefully. 60 years in sleep had effects on the human body. Some crew members might have lasting damage. Others might need weeks of treatment. Captain was revived first. The process took 2 hours. Waited outside the medical bay, her hands trembling despite her efforts to stay calm. Lieutenant stood with her, offering silent support. Around them, other family members waited for their own loved ones to wake. Finally, the door opened. Doctor stepped out, his face tired but smiling. "He is awake," the doctor said. "He is confused but stable. You can see him now." Walked into the medical bay on unsteady legs. Her father lay on a bed, covered in warming blankets. Machines monitored his heart and breathing. He looked exactly as she remembered, a man in his early 40s with kind eyes and gentle hands. Those eyes opened as she approached. They focused slowly, moving from the ceiling to her face. "I know you," whispered. His voice was rough from decades of silence. "You look like, but that is not possible. You are too old." Tears streamed down his face. "It is me. It is. I am 72 now. You have been gone for 60 years." Stared at her. His mind struggled to understand. He had closed his eyes on a ship expecting to die. Now he was awake, and his little girl was an old woman. 60 years, he repeated. "Yes, but we never stopped looking for you. We never gave up. I joined the Navy so I could be here when we found you. I wanted to be the first person you saw." Reached out with a shaking hand. Took it gently, feeling the warmth of her father's skin for the first time since she was a child. "My brave girl," said, "you came for me." "We all came for you," replied. "The whole world came for you." Around them, other reunions were happening. Some were joyful, filled with tears and laughter. Others were sorrowful, as crew members learned that their loved ones had died during the long wait. An old woman named discovered that her husband had passed away only 5 years ago, still hoping for her return. But even in grief, there was relief. They were free. After 60 years in the darkness, they were finally going home. Admiral watched these reunions from the doorway. She had commanded this mission, but the real victory belonged to the families who had never stopped fighting. Humanity had proven something today. They had proven that they would never abandon their own. She turned and walked back to the bridge. The mission was not over yet. A larger fleet was approaching, and she needed to send a final message to the galaxy. No one would ever take humanity's children again. The Grand Fleet arrived 3 hours after the rescue was complete. 200 warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their weapons charged, and their shields active. It was the largest military force the hegemony had assembled in 500 years. Admiral commanded the fleet from his flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Dominion. He was the most decorated officer in history, a warrior who had never lost a battle. High Command had given him simple orders: stop the humans, capture their ship, and restore the honor of the hegemony. Studied the human vessel on his tactical display. It was alone, a single ship against 200. By all logic, this should be an easy victory, but had read the reports from Captain. He had seen the recordings of the station's weapons vanishing into nothing. He knew this would not be a normal battle. All ships form attack pattern, commanded. Prepare to fire on my signal. On the Indomitable, Admiral watched the approaching fleet with calm eyes. Lieutenant stood beside her, his hands ready at the tactical console. 214 vessels, reported. Heavy cruisers, battleships, and support craft. They are moving into attack formation. Nodded slowly. They want to see what we can do. They need to understand. She turned to her communications officer. Ensign, open a channel to the flagship. Let them hear what I have to say. His fingers danced across her console. Channel open, Admiral. Spoke clearly and calmly. Admiral, I am Admiral of the United Earth Navy. Your high command has sent you to fight us. Before you make that choice, I want to show you something. She nodded too. The Indomitable moved. It did not fly forward like a normal ship. It shifted through space itself, appearing at the center of the formation in less than a heartbeat. Before any could react, the human ship passed through their entire fleet, weaving between vessels so fast that sensors could barely track it. When it stopped, it was back in its original position. The entire maneuver had taken 0.003 seconds. 214 targeting solutions acquired, continued. Every reactor core, every bridge, every life support system. I could end your entire fleet before your commanders finish giving orders to fire. Silence filled the communications channel. On 200 ships, officers stared at their screens in disbelief. Every single vessel showed warning lights. The human ship had locked weapons onto all of them simultaneously. Admiral felt cold fear wash through his body. He had fought many enemies in his long career. He had faced death many times, but he had never felt so completely helpless. But I will not fire, said, because that is not why we came here. We came for our people, we have them now, and we are leaving. She paused, letting her words settle. However, I want you and your hegemony to understand something. Humanity remembers. We remember every wrong done to us. We remember every insult, every attack, every act of cruelty. You took 18 of our people and we waited 60 years to bring them home. We built this ship because of what you did. We became what we are because you forced us to. Her voice grew harder. Imagine what we would do if you harmed 18 million. Imagine what we would become if you threatened our. There are 8 billion humans alive today. Every single one of them knows the story of the pioneer. Every single one of them knows what your hegemony did to our people. She leaned forward slightly. We do not want war. We want peace. We want to trade, to explore, to learn from other species. But we will never be weak again. We will never be victims again. And we will never, ever abandon our own. Admiral listened to these words and understood. This was not a threat. This was a statement of fact. The humans were not trying to scare him. They were telling him the truth about what they had become. The human vessel is powering down its weapons, one of his officers reported. Made his decision. He was a warrior, but he was not a fool. Fighting this enemy would not restore honor. It would only bring death. All ships stand down, he ordered. Let them go. The Indomitable turned slowly and began moving toward open space. It did not rush. It did not run. It simply departed like a predator that had finished what it came to do. As it left, automated message beacons activated across the sector. They broadcast a simple warning in every language used by galactic civilization. The same words appeared on screens in 100 different star systems, translated perfectly for each species. Caution, incoming human BATTLCRFT. Within days, the message spread across the galaxy. Other species, Ones that had been conquered or threatened by the hegemony heard what had happened. They saw recordings of the Indomitable passing through an entire fleet without being touched. They heard Admiral's speech and understood its meaning. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage. They were not conquerors, they were not aggressors, but they were not prey either. They were a species that remembered its wrongs, that protected its people, and that would never stop fighting for those it loved. In the years that followed, many things changed. The hegemony lost much of its power as other species grew bold enough to resist. Trade routes opened between Earth and dozens of alien worlds. Humanity took its place among the stars, respected and sometimes feared, but never again ignored. And on Earth, Captain reunited with the rest of his family. He met a great he had never known. He held his daughter close and thanked her for never giving up. The crew of the Pioneer had been lost for 60 years, but humanity had brought them home. That was what it meant to be human. You never abandoned your own, no matter how long it took, no matter how far you had to go. You always came back for your people.